Hi, everyone. So please bear with me. I have laryngitis today, so my voice is a little in and out. So first we're going to talk about adult protective services, and then I'm going to do the sex trafficking part of it. So we'll do this first. So we're from the Department of Social Services, which does child protective services and adult protective services. We will go ahead and start. Where's the clicker? With our first slide. So we wanted to talk about what we investigate, and we can investigate the following when it pertains to a vulnerable adult. So physical abuse, neglect by other people, neglect by self, financial exploitation, and sexual abuse. A vulnerable adult is someone who lacks the physical or mental capacity to provide for their daily needs. That leaves it kind of wide open for us to ask what is vulnerable. So some of the examples would be somebody maybe that's developmentally delayed or intellectual development, dementia or extreme mental health concerns, sorry, and physical disabilities as well. But remember, somebody that's blind isn't always vulnerable, or somebody that can't walk and is in a wheelchair is not always vulnerable. They can sometimes care for themselves and do everything for themselves. So
other factors are included when specifically with the physically disabled piece.
So, however, we would say you can always make the referral, and we'll determine in that situation. Just give us them as much as possible about the person's functioning capacity.
Okay.
So next.
So the next slide is what we do not investigate, or what we cannot investigate. So first is verbal or mental abuse. As much as we don't like that to happen specifically to anybody or vulnerable adults, we can't really investigate that. That's not in our guidelines. Financial exploitation by persons not known to the victim, such as scams, which I'm sure most of you know, online, telephone scams. We do report those to the Harford County Sheriff's Department, but we do not investigate. We might go out to determine if the referral we get is unsure if we know the person. And then if we do go out, we might educate them on how to avoid this happening to them. Abuse, neglect, or exploitation of a non-vulnerable adult, which we already talked about. Domestic violence, so husband and wife, even, that's a police matter. So there's some resources in those scenarios that we can offer, but we do not investigate domestic violence.
Unless somebody has is a competency issue. If
right.
One of the partners has maybe dementia and is not quite competent anymore to make the decision to be there, then we may intervene at that point.
Right.
But if it's just a standard relationship, even if they're older, but if they both have their facilities, we can't do anything.
Correct. Drug abuse, no matter the age. People that are a fall risk with no other vulnerabilities, which kind of goes with the physically disabled portion. I mean, I could be a fall risk. If I wear a too high heel, I could fall over. That doesn't make me vulnerable. So same goes with some of our older adults. And then people who are returning frequently to the hospital or frequent flyers. Sometimes they could be vulnerable, and if there's some other issue going on, we could investigate, but that's not the only reason that we could go out and investigate. And that is actually what the care center is for. We do make referrals to them. Often if we get a referral that isn't appropriate, we do refer back to the care center.
Okay, so when we do get a referral, this is kind of what we do. Within 5 business days, we'll meet with the client to do an assessment and to begin the process of determining if the client is being abused, neglected, or exploited. If the client is in immediate danger and there's a report of sexual or physical abuse, we may go out within 24 business hours. It's very dependent on the case. It's a case-by-case basis on that. So, but we do have 5 business days. So if you call to make a referral and it's just, this person's stealing this person's money, there's no immediate danger, and you call back 2 days later and said, what happened? We may not know yet. So just understand that.
And then we also take into account with the physical abuse, if they say, 2 years ago, my caregiver hurt me. Well, we will investigate, but that's not technically an emergency. However, if they have, marks on their arm or their neck and they say, oh, last night my caregiver strangled me, that would be something considered 24 hours.
Yeah, we need to, document injuries and call the police. So also in those situations, if you do get a referral where there's physical abuse, especially if somebody's in the hospital, please call the police to let them also document. They're the ones that can press charges. We cannot press the charges.
Right, and that helps with our investigation as well. The more documentation we have of the incident.
And if you're somebody in the hospital, you can document as well, just so that it's in their record medically. We also will assist the client in changing their situation if they are at risk and willing to change their situation. The willing part is a huge part. So if they're competent, just like any one of us, I can't make you do something you don't want to do. We're all adults. This is the United States. We all have rights. So if, Aunt Betty wants to live in a hoarded house with rats everywhere, I can't stop her if she's capable of making that decision.
They might not be the best decisions, but people make poor decisions every day, and we can't force them to do anything if they are competent.
Right. So what we do also is we report any confirmed abuse, neglect, or exploitation to the state's attorney's office and proper authorities. So we're going out, we're speaking with the client, we're speaking with some witnesses, we might be speaking with doctors or medical staff, we might be speaking with caseworkers, but we are also writing very lengthy reports. 9+ pages plus all our contact notes and everything, and that goes to the state's attorney's office so that if they choose to press charges, if it's indicated that there's abuse, that there is evidence and that we will likely testify in those cases. So it's not just a matter of going and seeing the clients and talking to them. We have a lot of follow-up to do in these cases.
Right, and for example, if we go out, and this might be on another slide, but if we go out for a financial exploitation and the report is that their son is stealing from them, they say, yep, I know about it, but I don't want to press charges. We still forward all that information to the state's attorneys and the police department, because that's in Comar, that's what we do, but they might not necessarily investigate, especially if the client doesn't want to. Okay, so this is what we cannot do. So kind of going back to some of the things we talked about earlier, we cannot force someone to go to a nursing home or an assisted living, or make them make safe choices if they are competent. That's the big thing. So yes, we have people that are discharged every day that we all know shouldn't live alone, but they say, nope, I'm going home and that's what I'm doing. And we can encourage and educate, but we can't force them to do anything they don't want to do. We can't force someone to take medications. We can't make them be compliant. Again, I could tell them, the home health nurse, anybody in this room, this is what you need to do. If they don't do it, there's nothing we can do about it if they're competent. Determine legal competency or capacity. So that's what doctors do. Us as an agency, we do not do that evaluation. We can suggest it or recommend it, but we don't have emergency placement. We are very, very different from CPS. So a lot of times when people hear APS, they think that we can do similar things, but we can't. We don't have any type of emergency housing. As most of you know, I'm sure the homeless shelter barely has any beds, and they're usually full, especially this time of year. So that's unfortunately not an option for our agency. We don't take clients into custody like Child Protective Services does at times. We cannot force them to accept services. So we might think they need something, but again, can't make them do it if they don't want it. And this specifically goes with our hoarding referrals. That doesn't mean don't make them, because sometimes we go out and there are things we can offer. However, if you guys have seen the show Hoarding, these people, this is what they do. It's a disease, and we can't say come in here and clean up. We don't have the budget. We're not capable of going in and cleaning someone's home, let alone obviously they have to allow us, which rarely happens in those cases. We cannot find someone housing. We can refer them and give them, the tools to use to find it themselves, but because that's based mainly on finances, there's a lot of questions asked in housing applications that we cannot answer. If they need help filling it out, we can help them, if they're blind or if they have trouble reading and writing, but that's not something we do for them. And we do not apply clients for long-term care, Medicaid, or assisted living facilities. Again, that's a big financial piece that is not something that's in our regulations to do.
No. Continued. Sorry, there's a lot of things we can't do. We cannot make people take legal action. This is kind of what Melissa was talking about. So if I could go to a house and I know absolutely that this client's son is stealing all of her money. He's taking it all, buying drugs, and she's going to be evicted because she can't pay her rent or she can't get her medications. If she says, and she's competent, and she says, I know my son's doing that, but he's my son, I don't want to do anything about it, I can't make her do anything about it. I can forward my information to the police, which I will do, but they are also not going to be able to do anything because the person has to want to press charges. So that's a situation where, again, we will take the referral, but we may not be able to really resolve the issue because they may not let us help them. We don't file for guardianship for unknown people. So if Mr. X comes in the hospital and there's no neglect or anything else, we're not even involved, we've never known him, we're not going to just come in and file a guardianship. If it's somebody that we've had and that we have open, that's different. But if we don't know this person and there's no reason for us to be investigating, then there's no reason to file a guardianship.
That we would file a guardianship.
That we would file, yeah.
Right.
We cannot make people leave an unsafe situation, which I think, yeah, it's changed from on here. Oh no, there it is. It's their choice, as we talked about hoarding and other situations. We cannot condemn homes. So the only person that can is Department of Inspections and Licensing. And I will tell you, in 15 years of doing this, I've only seen one home that was condemned.
Department of
Inspections and Licensing. DILP is what it's called, yeah. And they don't do that. I mean, and if they do it, if you owned a home and they said we're condemning this, you can actually go back in your house and stay in there. It's your house, you own it. So as many people will call us and say, you need to condemn the house, it's condemnable. Number one, most of the time it's not, legally.
It's not up to our standards.
Yeah, but it's not condemnable. And two, to find somebody that will actually follow through with condemning it is very difficult. That's not usually a good option to help the person, because they're going to just go right back in the house, whether it's condemned or not, and stay in there. So we also don't investigate abuse of a patient in a mental health facility, hospital, nursing home, or community homes for developmentally disabled individuals. That is Office of Healthcare Quality, or OHCQ. Their information's further back in the PowerPoint. We do get referrals at times for that. We always forward it to them, but we can't investigate it. It's not in our jurisdiction, so we can't, even if we wanted to. And we cannot plan a discharge for a client from the hospital. It's not our role. It's not what we can, we're not discharge planners. So that's something that would have to continue to have. Yeah, and we aren't a discharge plan also, yeah. So somebody saying, or from any facility, well, we referred it to Adult Protective Services, so it's all good. We might not take the referral. If it doesn't meet our criteria, it may not be opened. And even if it is, we may not be able to do anything for them. So just kind of understand that.